right, and one of the things we'd like to discuss this morning is the role of county assemblies envisaged in the Constitution 2010 and whether they are actually acting in that mandate. A quick reintroduction of the guests that we have this morning, and I have to my extreme left, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, we have Honorable Kembi Gitura and Ambrose Weda to have this discussion. Gentlemen, to start off, maybe just by giving a few pointers onto the role of MCAs as it is written in the Constitution, maintain close contact with the electorate and consult them on issues before or under discussion in the County Assembly, present views, opinions and proposals of the electorate to the County Assembly, and the list goes on. Let me start with you, Honorable Kembi Gitura, just to look at how MCAs have been carrying out their mandate and whether they are acting on behalf of Wanjiku or it seems more like a selfish drive that they have.
The MCAs under the Constitution and under the County Governments Act also are supposed to play a very important role, part of what you have read. An MCA is equivalent of a member of Parliament, the National Assembly, at the level of the county, at the level of the county, right? Mm-hmm. And they are supposed to have that, or they have that oversight role over the county government, of the governor and the county government. And fortunately, now, unlike in the first time, we're having more and more very well educated members of the county assembly. So it's not a question of not understanding the Constitution, mm-hmm. or being misled by anybody. I think when we talk about their relationship with the governors, we must realize the dynamics of each and every county. I served in the Senate, and I saw a good number of governors dragged into the Senate with impeachment proceedings. And a lot of times they say there are simple misunderstandings. Other times they reckon that it is intimidation. Mm-hmm. But we must allow that the members of the county assembly are the ones with the power to impeach the governor.
Correct.
And if they feel that the CECs, the so-called ministers in the counties, because they're actually not ministers, they are executive committee members of the county, mm-hmm. when we see the members of the county assembly talk like we just seen on screen, talk about issues in the county, my view is this. If they are dissatisfied with a member of the county executive, the so-called ministers in the counties, they have the power to remove them. The same way the members of the National Assembly have the powers to remove a cabinet secretary. So for me, this should be actuated if there is a good reason to remove a CEC. Mm-hmm. And the less we talk about, the less they talk about it and bite, the more it's going to take effect. Mm. But then it looks to me like it's always a matter of give and take between the executive in the county and the county assemblies. Mm. Like, they want something done. If it is not done, they threaten. They threaten. But the most important person is Wanjiku, because a lot of money that is going to the counties actually is getting wasted. It doesn't reach that Wanjiku in some counties. When I follow what's happening in some counties, I feel very happy about what I'm seeing happening in some counties. Mm. In the case of Makueni is becoming a very good case in point. Mm. The other day I was watching my friend Governor Lonyangapuo in West Pokot and what he's trying to achieve in very difficult circumstances, and I applaud him. And you applaud it. And I applaud those that are doing this. Mm-hmm. So I think the members of the county assembly need to get that notion, to realize that they are there to serve Wanjiku. Mm-hmm. If it means removing a speaker, then if it means removing a CEC, mm-hmm. so let it be, because they are the ones with that power and authority, and they should be respected. What the members of the county assembly are doing within the law must be respected, because they are the ones with that mandate.
All right, and it is clear that they have the power to do that. They have the mandate to do that. They are given that authority by the Constitution. Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, looking at let's take an example of Nairobi County, and we saw what was happening. When you look at the reasons why, or they were giving as to why they were impeaching the speaker, Madam Beatrice Elachi, one is left with the question wondering, are they acting on behalf of the residents of Nairobi or on their own behalf? One of them was, on record saying that she cannot travel alone. We have to travel together.
Well, it's very interesting because at times the line is very thin between a representative representing his own interests or that of the public. But suffice to say the following, that it's really a question of public relations or human relations in terms of leadership. And there is this African mentality that if you elect me today as your leader, then I become your boss. I saw President Museveni the other day telling Ugandans that he's not a servant, he's a freedom fighter, and therefore he's fighting for his freedom to exercise leadership within Uganda. This therefore means that when a speaker is elected by MCAs to be the speaker of the county assembly, he or she forgets that the mandate stems from the MCAs, and therefore the MCAs must be treated with a lot of decorum. And this is where we fail. Governors, on the other hand, also believe that they got their direct mandate from the people, but they forget the same people elected MCAs and they're supposed to partner to serve the people. And, you know, there is still a lot of confusion about devolution, where MP wants his resources, women rep, even senators, MCAs, they want their own resources in a certain corner. If I was to advise on the issue of how things should be done, there should be a committee, some kind of committee, where projects cascade up from every sub-county for every ward, and they are discussed in a forum where leaders engage with respect. And we will be able to finish a lot of these misgivings.
All right, and you bring up an interesting point. I happen to be privileged to have gone to Makueni County when they were doing the peer-to-peer governor learning conference, where, and one of the things that Makueni seems to have got right is the issue of public participation, where even the projects that they're doing come from Wanjiko, coming upwards. It is also Wanjiko who more or less looks at the projects that are being done and can tell who is doing what. Ambrose Weda, yes. Have other counties failed in having the public participate? I'll just quote one of the roles that the MCAs are supposed to have, but of course are left in question, and that is the issue of representation. Maintain close contact with the electorate and consult them.
I think we must, my view is this: the MCAs have been a hard nut to crack. Majority of them have been a disgrace. Every time you have had them fight, it has been about themselves. They took Professor Kebwana a whole 5 years fighting about their budgetary allocation. Professor is saying a lot of money should go for development. They are saying, no, we need it. Until the professor said, let's all go home. I have agreed, all of us. That is when they woke up, realized they will lose their seats. You go to CIA, you go to where MCAs, and each time they are fighting, it is about themselves. We have to relook about the role of these MCAs. They have frustrated the devolution so much that most governors are either in the Senate or in court, trying to fight for survival 5 years. The role they were supposed to play of representation, they have chosen to represent themselves. They could be fighting Alachi. Alachi could have her own issues. But if you hear their grievances, it is not that we want to pass this bill, this lady has refused. We want this funding allocated, this lady has refused. We want to do this. They are saying, she went to America, she didn't go with us. She flew first class, she didn't fly with so-and-so. She is drinking water brought from the... If you look at it, you can weep when Wanjiku is not in the picture. Sadly, they are the ones who are supposed to represent Wanjiku. Most governors who have been destabilized, they have been by MCAs.
How do we fix that? How do we fix that? Because it's the same MCAs that we have elected, that are elected by the people.
I think MCAs should be people who have gone to university level, not the backdoor university, real ones. Normally, there's some decorum that comes with good education.
Are you suggesting that the MCAs that we have currently are not educated?
Majority of them either have bought certificates or they are not. I am saying from... so
the issue here is education?
No, I'm saying one. I'm suggesting education, one. Number two, let the electorate elect people according to their competence, according to what they think they can do, not according to how much money they can come with or according to their party. When you go there and say 6 P's, and then in there's some shenanigans who go there and they were told being an MCA now is very, you will make a lot of money. which the MCAs in the first quarter were able to make because things had not been put in place. Now, around 2 MCAs, things are now being put in place. There's no much money. So the frustration is being vented against either the governor or the speaker or whatever. So we must up the qualification
of the
so
MCA.
that we have slightly better people.
I see Kempi Gitura, shaking his head in disagreement.
It has nothing to do with education. Some of the most corrupt people are very well educated. Some of the people who behave as if they never went to school are very well educated. It's a question of attitude. And I'm telling you, there are some MCAs who are doing a very sterling job. And we should not pose what they are trying to achieve. Because they're the ones elected, right? And I'm not talking about a specific person. I'm not talking about Beatrice Alachi, who was my colleague in the Senate. I'm not talking about Governor so-and-so. But the truth of the matter is this, that some governors need to be impeached. Pure and simple.
Pure and simple.
And the only people who can impeach them, or who can recommend the impeachment in Senate, are the MCAs.
And that is
and
true.
It is not a question of education, because some county assemblies, I know some county assemblies where 99% of the members are graduates of universities. So for me, it's not a question of education. It's a question of attitude, and it's a question of this ingrained feeling in Kenya that corruption pays. The feeling that the more money you have, you can do what you want to do because you have the money. And the feeling that the governor owes you, or the MCA owes the governor, and that they can trade horses, so that governor can continue to be corrupt because he can take the MCAs to Mombasa. That has nothing to do with education.
And therein lies the problem, Mheshimiwa, because then if that is, the horse trading is between governor and MCAs.
And Wanjiku is forgotten.
And Wanjiku is completely left out of the question, then what do we need them
That
there
is
for?
the tragedy. That's the tragedy of the times we are living in, not just in county assemblies, but also in the country.
So you've said education is not what would fix it. What would fix that?
We need to start making, we need to rethink this country. We need to sit back and ask ourselves, what are the values, societal values? And I have students said this, and I'll say it again at the risk of repeating myself because you've asked me. It is about time that we started teaching national values. Not in high school, not in university, but from kindergarten. There we went to Sunday school, and we were taught Bible verses, and we were taught about, Adam and Eve. We grew up believing in all these things, and therefore became either good Christians or poor Christians. The same way that Muslims are taught in the madrasas. My theory has always been that national values need to be taught now from kindergarten. How many kids, how many people can know the national anthem, for instance? How many people just sing it and do not understand the words of it?
They don't know what the gravity of it.
They don't know the gravity of it because they don't care. They just sing it just because it has to be sung on a Friday when you are raising the flag. They don't even know what that flag stands for. So I think it is time that we must start thinking about this nation as a people and doing it right from scratch, so that it is inculcated in the minds of people, so that people have fear in them. Today, do you arrest somebody's PA with 650 million shillings in their house, and nothing happens?
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens. So for me, let us stop talking about education. Some of the founding fathers of African nations, the Jomo Kenyattas, then Nkrumahs, they were not people who had a university degree, but yet they are the ones who laid the foundations of these countries. They are Abdul Nasser's and others. So let's not talk about education. Is important,
and
yes.
I guess,
but education is important. Education is important only if you can put it to proper use.
And I think what we need to define then is this education, because in the same context, you've said that we need to teach at a lower level, maybe social studies and values. So there still needs to be some form of education. Maybe what we need to look at is what education are we talking about.
When I talked about university education.
I want to hear from Honorable Kiro.
Just allow me to put...
Can we hear from Honorable Kiro? He's been quite, and I was seeing him, wanting to weigh in.
Yeah. First of all, let's go back to the foundation of MCAs. They were called eldermen those days. And these are people who are representing people's interest in certain localities. They were generally chosen on the basis of their own values, societal values, but not on the basis of education. Number two, leaders are a reflection of our society. As long as our society has a high propensity of bad manners, those we choose represent us because we choose people who look like us. If we are thugs, we are going to choose one of our thugs to lead us. And therefore, what we need is to go to the foundation of society, the way Mheshimiwa Kembe Gitura said, and ensure that we inculcate these values in our young people. We also need our leaders to be a shining example. Remember the case of Murtala Muhammad in Nigeria, when he took over and he brought in some kind of discipline. The following day, or the following day, people were in their offices at 7 o'clock. Today, you go to many counties, you find there are no people in the office to serve the public, and this same public is the public that is bringing money, whether it is land transaction, whether it is something. Imagine if you are to multiply the revenue the government is supposed to be raking in is going to be lost in the midst. So it's a question of what is our value for leaders? How do we look at leaders? If I serve in a certain position for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, and at the end of it, I don't have anything to show off that I own 1, 2, 3, people say I was not a good leader. What did he do for himself?
Absolutely. And you know, now that you talk about leadership, it's interesting because even as we were looking at China, the thing that came out again was leadership, where our leaders taking us. When we go to China, what is happening now? Nairobi County Speaker Beatrice Elachi is not the only one who faced the wrath of MCAs, and they are serving the interests of the Wananchi. Let's take a look at this. All right, and that is some drama that has been seen in certain county assemblies. We've seen Mandera there, and also other counties where we've seen MCAs basically taking matters into their own hands. And I think it was Okonko that said that sometimes when you're not able to express yourself using words, you use your fists. Ambrose Weda.
Let me tell you. Let's look at the conduct in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Well, good. If you check the education, very high. Look at Makueni led by Professor Kibwana. Look at Kisumu, Professor Nyong'o. Look at Nairobi, Professor Sonko. Look at Mombasa, Professor Joho. You can see that there is some culture that education brings. Please.
Even with Sonko.
I want you to compare. Then when you compare, you see and see. That's why it is to drive a point.
Okay.
That they are professors. And you see the way
the
they
different kinds of professors.
Most of these MCAs, the culture is not there because either some of the boss certificates or they are just, they're rogue. Therefore, we need to up the bar. Good education first before you represent the people. And then this kind of culture. Even if you look at the National Assembly, they are not that bad. They disagree sometimes. They can pour water. A few of them may want to remove their pants, but they are restrained. It is more out of the in-training. Education means you have received something inside that restrains you, not external.
But that does not deal with the core issue that we're discussing here, the fact that MCAs seem to be doing this for their own. benefit.
Yes, they are doing it for their own business.
That is a value issue.
Remember, the MCAs are not the most corrupt. Big corruption is done in NYS and big people and the SGRs and so on. And it is done for you to be properly corrupt. You need a lot of intelligence. Yani, your brain must be very good. And therefore, those who steal the most, they are very smooth. They follow the law. They follow procedures. They don't behave like this. Those who do this, they just see little money. We want a trip to America. You didn't bring us. But those who steal the billions, look around, even the ones who are being questioned, those who are found with 600 million, a billion, they are smooth. They are highly educated. They know the procedures. They are respectful. Even when you look at them, they look very innocent. They can't. These ones can't steal a million, 100 million from you. You look at them and you're suspicious from day one.
Okay, so you're saying two things here which are contradicting themselves. And that's the fact that the fact that the same educated people are the ones who are very smooth and stealing in billions. So are those the people that we want to represent us really?
For now, what we are complaining about, first before you go to corruption, is conduct. This one is. We are not talking about moral issues like corruption here. We are just talking about roughness. We are talking about indiscipline.
We're talking about representation. We're talking about what their role and responsibilities are. If they're not able to perform that, whether it is from a point of corruption or gatekeeping, they're gatekeepers.
You see, let's separate their conduct first. You see the way they are behaving? They are messing everything. Even if they were not corrupt, they were just good leaders, very innocent. But the way they behave, the mess they create for the society, for the Wanjiku, is much more. It is worse. Because where they are, you see the way they corrupt the children, they corrupt the country, they give everything a bad name.
Okay.
But the corruption can be dealt with in law.
In law. Kembi Gitura?
We've had great leaders in this country. All the way from independence. People who did not go to university. Martin Shikuku is one of the most respected legislators in Kenya. And he fought corruption, and he stood with Wanjiku. There was no Wanjiku then. Wanjiku came much later with President Moi. He fought corruption, he stood for what was right, and he refused to be trodden down by the electorate, the people who voted for him in Butere, because he made them understand that his role was not to give them handouts, but to make laws in Nairobi. But he kept being elected, re-elected, being re-elected. Martin Shikuku had not been to any formal university, but he was much better than a lot of people, university graduates. And you can quote a lot of these people who have come up, Jenga Karumes and all those others, a lot of people who never necessarily went to university, but either did what was right or did what was wrong, not because of their education, but because of what was inculcated in them. So my position still remains that what we need to inculcate in our children are national values, the things that will make a nation grow. But what the MCAs are doing, and you must be reminded, everybody must be reminded that they're elected by the people. And as long as they are following the standing orders, as long as they are acting within the law in the chamber, whether in the County Assembly of Nairobi, Murang'a, Kiambu, wherever else, as long as they are within the law, using the standing orders, no court of law can stop them from doing what they have done. The court will only come in to correct a situation if standing orders were breached and things like those, nothing else. And this needs to be understood, that when you talk about division of powers between the legislature and the executive and the judiciary, it needs to be understood that however lowly Weda may look at MCAs, and I've got great respect for MCAs myself, most of them, however lowly he may look at them, they are the ones mandated with the role of impeaching governors. They can remove CECs, and they can also remove their speaker as long as they are within the law, within the standing orders, whatever else you may think about them. So I think this needs to be respected, and I think going forward, we are going to find how the division between the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive works. But I have kept saying, democracy is work in progress. And we are going to have, devolution is the most important thing that ever happened in this country under the new constitution. And I think we are going to grow it, because at the end of the day, when it is perfected or comes near perfection, then Wanjiku is going to become the biggest beneficiary of devolution.
All right, and I want to get your closing comment, gentlemen, but a quick reminder of that question that we're running. How can governors, county speakers, and MCAs better their working relations? Let me start with you, Honorable Kipruto Arap Kirwa, with your closing comments.
Well, it's useful for us to understand democracy as a number of elements, one of which is people's participation. That's the beginning of democracy. And for democracy to be effectively endowed, that participation must be informed. The current constitution allows leaders to participate in the public affairs in a consultative manner. When you see that, it reminds you of the Tower of Babel. And this kind of fighting means there is something lacking about involvement of other leaders, whether it is the county assembly, whether it is in various fora. They are not being involved fully in terms of them feeling that this is part of us. Number two, it is also important to realize that some of the fights really emanate from scarce resources that comes from the center. I realized the other week, only 5% of what ought to go to the devolved system, only 5% went. This therefore means they may be fighting over things they do not understand. And this is something that is so important. Insofar as education is concerned, I really do value education. But education cannot substitute bad manners.
Absolutely.
If somebody is ill-informed, is not going to be a great leader. Remember, Winston Churchill could not make it beyond Form 2 in secondary school. But he's one of the greatest leaders, often quoted in various fora. So education is good, but it is not entirely the only
It's not the making of a good leader. Ambrose, what are your closing comments?
I think modern times, the times where we are, requires people who understand both local and national issues, people who are fairly deeply educated, people of a culture, glorifying illiteracy and all manner by pointing one or two few leaders who did. Those are exceptions. Where we are today, we want to understand people. When you talk about HIV, when you talk about Ebola, they can see a worldview. Therefore, as we elect, let us look at leaders who can understand this. They will immediately stop behaving in that cavalier manner that we see on TV as they fight each other over some coins or a trip.
When you forget some of those MCAs are university graduates.
With fake university degrees.
Yeah.
If real ones.
With master's degrees.
No, fake ones, most of them.
All right, gentlemen, I think we'll have to wrap it up right there. Honorable Kembi, your closing comments?
There is a speech that President Barack Obama, made as a commencement speech in one of the Illinois universities this week. And he talked about elections and the need for people to elect people who know what they are doing. And he talked about corruption. And he talked about nationhood. And he was speaking to young men and women from an Illinois university, although he was, of course, addressing the whole nation and the whole world. That is a clip. That speech by President Barack Obama, former President of America, is exactly 1 hour, 5 minutes. And I think there's a speech that everybody who cares about this country should listen to. Because he sets out the issues. He talks about whether he's talking about electing people who know what they are doing, and he talks about corruption. He talks about causing up with enemy, and he talks about many great things. And I was very, very impressed. The only way that the MCAs and the governors are going to work together, in my view, is first and foremost if they understand their roles. If the governor understands that his role is not stealing from Wanjiku, it is working for Wanjiku. If the governor understands that his role is not to come from a situation of a pauper or a poor person 2 years ago to a multimillionaire 2 years later because he's been elected, and you know that he's not running a factory anywhere. It is Wanjiku's money being pilfered. If the MCAs understand that their role is to make laws and to, what you quoted there, to get closer to Wanjiku and work to help Wanjiku, then the governor and the MCAs will be able to work together, because then they'll realize that they're not working for self-interest.
It's for the
and they'll realize that corruption is what is going to kill their counties. And when you kill 47 counties, when that cancer spreads, and I've been quoted as saying that we did not do, devolution was not meant to devolve corruption. When the cancer spreads within 47 counties, it will become very difficult to remove it from the whole country.
Allow us to finish right there. I think that is a good place to wrap it up. Thank you very much, Honorable Kembi Gitura, immediate former senator for Murang'a County, Honorable Kipruto Arab Kiro, who is the deputy party leader for ANC, and last but not least, Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. That is the state of the nation. It's now 26 minutes to 8. We're going to take a short break, but do stay with us right here on Morning Express. We have more lined up for you, including Tech Central.